Well, welcome again to our reading of the Septuagint. We've been reading Genesis 37, and we're up to the last little section, starting at verse 31. So Joseph has been sold to the Ishmaelites, and he's on his way down to Egypt. So Labontes de ton kitona to Yosef esvaxen erifon a igon kai emolunan ton kitona to haimati. So his brothers now discovering that they're thinking that he's dead, and so they're the subject of the participle here, and the verb, having taken the tunic of Joseph, which we remember they had taken from him. Esvaxen, this is from spasdo, good classical word, to slaughter, often used of slaughtering animals, but unfortunately in some places in classical Greek sometimes people. So they slaughtered an eriphon, a kid from the goats, igon. This is from ix, it's a third declension noun, and this is the genitive plural. An eriphos is a kid from among the goats. Kai emolunan. Moluno is to sully, to spoil something, to make it dirty. Here, they sullied or perhaps smeared the tunic toe in the blood, or with the blood, or they sullied the tunic with blood. Kai epestalen ton kitona ton poikilon, kai eis einenkan to patriarton, kai epen tuto huromen. And they sent back the garment, the fancy tunic, and they brought it in. This is from eis pharaoh. Now the aorist is einen kon. It's normally a strong aorist, but you get a weak aorist ending here, which often happens in Koine Greek. You get mixtures of, sometimes you get strong aorist, sometimes you get weak aorist, even within the same author. So this should have been a strong aorist verb, but they've written it as a weak aorist. So they brought it in to their father, Kaiepa, and they said, Tuton Huromen from Hurisco, we found this. Epignothi e kiton tu huiu su estin a u. Well, it's epignosco is to know or to recognize something. So this is the aorist imperative here. So recognize if, we would say decide whether. Recognize if it is the kiton, the tunic of your son, au, or not. Kai epegno auton, kai apen kiton tu huiu mu estin. De rion poneron katephagon auton. Therion herpasen ton Yosef. And he recognized it, and he said, it is the tunic of my son. An evil beast has devoured him, from Kates Theo. And a beast, therion, this is from harpasdo, to snatch, so has snatched Joseph. So we get these diminutives. We saw one before with that when he was described up here as a paidarion, another form of paidion. Later Greek is quite fond of these diminutives. We get more of these here. A ther, without the eon. A ther is the classical word for a beast. I think we get our word deer is connected from this, but ther is the word for beast, and now we get these diminutive forms. It's a little beast, but it's a beast nonetheless. Dierexen, and here we get that diaragnumi verb again. Dierexen de Jacob tahimatia autu kai pethados sakon epitan ospun autu kai pentheton huion autu hemeros polas. So Jacob tore his garments and he put on, from epitithemi, he put on sakon. This is sackcloth. It's a kind of very rough clothing. It's meant to be a sign of mourning. He put that over his osphon, his loins. And epenthe is from pentheo. This is the imperfect, so it's a contract epsilon verb. So you get epenthee, which contracts there. So it's an imperfect from pentheo. And so it's probably inceptive. He began to mourn his son, or he was mourning for his son, Hemeros Polas, accusative of time during which for many days. Sune kthesan de pantes hoi huioi autu kai hothobeteres, kai elthen parakalisai auton, kai uk aethelen parakalisthai, legan hoti katabasomai proston huion mu, apenthon es haidu. And all his sons and daughters were gathered together, aorist passive from sun ago, and they came, and we get an infinitive of purpose here, so as to console, parakaleo, to console him, and he was not willing to be consoled. So we get the same verb in the passive here. Legon saying, and then hoti is just inverted commas. I will go down from katabino. I will go down to my son, mourning. Now this is not ace plus the genitive, although it looks like that. You have to supply oikon into the house of Hades. This is a common classical expression. It's ace oikon to haidu. Hades was the person. Hades was the brother of Zeus. And Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades divided up the world. Poseidon took the sea. Zeus took the heavens, and poor old Hades, I think, drew the short straw. He got the area below the earth, which we call hell or Hades. So you've got to supply oikon here into the house of Hades. Kai eklausen auton hopate autu, and his father wept for him. Aorist from Clio, if you're looking this up, it's alpha iota, and then you get a vowel gradation in the aorist. Eklausa is the aorist. So his father wept for him, or wept over him. Hoi de midi enaioi. Now this again is different from what we had before. In earlier verse 28, it was the Ishmaelites who took Joseph into Egypt. Now it's the Midianites. So again, it's these different strands that have got different details. So the Midianites, apedon ton Yesuf es Aigupton, to Potiphar, to spadonti Pharao, Archimagero. And the Midianites, the Hebrew actually has a different name. It's got the Medanites. Apodonto, from apodidomi, to sell. So they sold Joseph into Egypt. They sold him to, it's Potiphar, we normally translate as Potiphar. The Egyptian name apparently means Ra gives. Now this next little bit's very complicated. The spadonti of Pharaoh. This is generally translated as the eunuch of Pharaoh. The word occurs elsewhere in the Septuagint. It's also found in Plutarch. It's derived from the verb spao, from which also spodonismos is derived, which means castration. The verb spodonizdo is to make flaccid, and so these were people who were incapable of having an erection, and hence they were flaccid, and hence they're translated as they become eunuchs. This will be a genitive here. And then he's also described as the Archimagero, megaros. Now, the megaros is a cook, so a chief cook, often translated perhaps as chief butcher, because the name can also mean one who cuts up the meat, but can also have the sense, well, the Hebrew word can mean the chief executioner, or it can just mean the captain, because the captain of the bodyguards was one who would, well, literally make mincemeat of anyone who caused trouble, or who tried to interfere with with Pharaoh's wife, or did other bad things. So both Josephus and Philo, probably relying on the Septuagint, not the Hebrew, misunderstood this to mean the chief cook. It's generally translated as chief of the guards. And now, of course, the chief of the guards of your inner chamber would need to be a eunuch to make sure they didn't interfere with your wife. And it may be that the Alexandrian scholars who are translating this found it hard to believe that a eunuch, a spadone, could hold such an important position. So I'm going to translate this. In fact, the Hebrew literally has the equivalent of handed him to the Egyptian, to Potiphar of the eunuchs of Pharaoh, the captain, the Hebrew word is sar, of the guards. And that's probably the best way of translating this. So to the eunuch of Pharaoh, chief of the guards, captain of the guard. And that's the end of chapter 37.